There are two ways to get a driver's license in Portugal. You can go through the process that a Portuguese person goes through, which is taking all the tests and going to an Escola de Condução, which is your Portuguese driving school. Of course, all of this is conducted in Portuguese. The other, much easier option is to simply exchange your license from home. However, there are a few hoops that you need to jump through in order to do this, and you need to get the process started while you're still at home before you go to Portugal. So in this section of the course, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you exchange your driver's license. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of purchasing a car in Portugal. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about what it's like driving in Portugal. So let's get started. As I mentioned in the introduction, the process of exchanging your driver's license starts when you're in your home country. You're going to need an apostilled copy of your driver's license. This is a pretty easy process, and you can find a lot of agents or services online that will do it for you. What I did was I went to a local notary with my driver's license, and the notary made a photocopy of my license. They signed it saying that it was an official copy, and they stamped it with their notary stamp. So then I had a notarized copy of my driver's license. The next step was for me to send it to my Secretary of State. At the time I was living in the state of Georgia, so I had to send it to Atlanta, to the Secretary of State there. The process took a few days, and I had to pay a fee, a very small fee, and then it's sent back to me with an apostille. So you've got an apostilled copy of the driver's license. Now, the process will vary a little bit depending on which state you're in. So it's a good idea to go to your Secretary of State's website and find the information you need for getting an apostilled copy. It's important to note, if your driver's license is from a country that's outside the United States, if you've lived abroad for some time, you've got a driver's license from Korea, for example. I had a Korean driver's license, and that license will need to be translated into English, and it has to be an official translation. Again, there are services online that will do this for you. They will actually translate the license and then send it on to a Secretary of State, and then it will be apostilled, and you'll have a translated apostilled copy of your driver's license. This is important because you need to bring this to the Portuguese Driver's License Agency in order to exchange your license. After you arrive in Portugal, you can exchange your license immediately. You do need to wait until after your CEF or immigration interview. After you have your immigration interview and you receive your temporary residence card in the mail, then you need to first go to the Centro Saúde, the health center, in order to get your numero utente. I outlined that in the previous section. The reason for this is because if you're ever in an accident, and for example, you're unconscious after the accident, an ambulance will come and take you to a public hospital. So after you get your numero utente, you need to then go to your local doctor. And your local doctor is going to perform a wellness check to ensure that you're fit to drive. This varies depending on which physician you go to. I've heard different stories about what the medical checks were like. Mine was very, very simple. I went in, I paid my €30 fee to see the doctor and have the tests done. They weren't really tests. He simply took my vital signs. He asked me if I had any pre-existing conditions that would impact my ability to drive. He did a hearing and vision test. And then the entire form is actually completed online, and the doctor completes it. So I didn't have to do anything. I simply went to see the doctor. He completed it and sent it immediately to IMT, which is the Portuguese Driver's License Bureau. And that information will be there when you actually go to exchange your license. All right, so now hopefully you've jumped through all the hoops that you need to jump through, both back home and once you arrive in Portugal, you're ready to exchange your driver's license. You need to go to the IMT, which is the Portuguese Driver's License Bureau, to exchange your license. It's important to note, unlike the Centro Saúde, there's not an IMT in every town, so you may have to drive a little bit to get to your IMT. I live in Peniche, and I actually had to drive to Santarém, which is about 45 minutes away. Once you get there, you're going to be asked to fill out a little bit of paperwork. They're going to take a photo of you. As I said earlier, they're going to have your medical record on file, and you're going to need to present them the apostilled copy of your driver's license and your original driver's license from home. So bear in mind that you're not going to get this back. If you travel back home, you may need an international driver's license to drive in your home country. You may get back to your home country and you may get another driver's license. That's another solution. However, do keep this in mind that you will not be getting that driver's license back. Now, on that day, you won't get your driver's license. What you're going to get is a piece of paper that serves as an interim license, and it's good for 60 days. Usually, your new driver's license will arrive in the mail within that 60-day time frame. However, bear in mind that it may not. When I got my temporary license, they said, here you go. Here's your temporary license. It's good for 60 days. Your real license will arrive within 90 days. Of course, I said, well, what do I do during those extra 30 days? And they said, you need to come back here before the 60 days is up, and you need to get another temporary license. I asked if they could give me a temporary license for 90 days, and they can't. So I hope that doesn't happen to you. Just be aware that it is a possibility, and if it does, you may need to go back to the IMT a second time to do another temporary license. Before we go on to our next video about purchasing a car, I do want to talk about two very, very important things. First of all, when you first arrive in Portugal, remember, you're not going to have your Portuguese driver's license, so it's a good idea to get an international driver's license from back home. You can go to the local AAA office in your city or in a nearby city. I believe it's about $15 or $20. When I did it, I think I paid $15. And you get a temporary international license that is good for 1 year from the date of purchase. And that should cover you for the interim between when you arrive and when you get your temporary license at the IMT. The second thing that's really important to remember is that the time you have to exchange your license is not unlimited. You need to get it done sooner rather than later. You only have 6 months from the date of your CEF interview to exchange your license. If you wait longer than that, then you're going to have to go through the process that any Portuguese person would have to go through when they get a driver's license. And that means you're going to have to take all the tests in Portuguese, and that can be a real challenge if you've just moved to a country and you're not familiar with the language. So definitely make this a priority when you first arrive in Portugal.